Hello, friends. Welcome to Ash Wednesday. So, today we're not going to be doing a traditional service, but I thought of this more as like a video devotional, if you will, a way that you can be in your own private space, in a place that you feel comfortable, and to recognize how important today is. Historically, in the church, Ash Wednesday marks the beginning of Lent, the 40 days before the Holy Week. And it's traditionally in the season of Lent that we think about who we are and our need for grace. And for many, Lent might be a difficult time. We don't want to admit or think about, brokenness or coming to terms with our mortality. But I hope that in this devotional today, I can give you a slightly different perspective about these things. And to do so, I wanted us to turn our attention to Scripture. And if you could come to Psalm 56. And it goes like this. Be merciful to me, my God, for my enemies are in hot pursuit. All day long they press their attack. My adversaries pursue me all day long. In their pride many are attacking me. When I am afraid, I put my trust in you. In God, whose word I praise, in God I trust and am not afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? All day long they twist my words. All their schemes are for my ruin. They conspire, they lurk, they watch my steps, hoping to take my life. Because of their wickedness, do not let them escape. In your anger, God, bring the nations down. Record my misery. List my tears on your scroll. Are they not in your record? Then my enemies will turn back when I call for help. By this I will know that God is for me. In God, whose word I praise, in the Lord, whose word I praise, in God I trust and am not afraid. What can man do to me? I am under vows to you, my God. I'll present my thank offerings to you, for you have delivered me from death and my feet from stumbling, that I may walk before God in the light of life. Amen. Let's just take a moment to pray and center ourselves. God, as we come before the Word, may we have our hearts opened to recognize the importance of this moment and this time that we're living in, and to also recognize that your generous grace is there for us. We thank you so much for your compassion and your kindness to us, Lord. In your name we pray. Amen. So as I was mentioning before, that Ash Wednesday marks the beginning of Lent. And there is a practice that people do in Lent, is that they will take ashes and sometimes mix with oil, and they'll impose it upon their foreheads as a mark. And some pastors, depending on the tradition, they'd say something to the effect of saying that from dust you have come, and to dust you shall return. And it's a difficult phrase for some. It's coming to terms with the fact that we are like dust, that we are weak, that we are fragile, that our life is passing. If anyone has seen ashes or dust of any kind, you just kind of blow upon it, and these little fragments just go with the wind. They have no permanence in themselves. It reminds me of this story that I remember attending a memorial service once, and there was someone who was grieving someone who was who just departed, very loved by the community. And as they began to share, they began to weep uncontrollably, and they couldn't speak. And the first thing that they said was, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry for breaking down." And in fact, when we use the words of saying that we were crying, we use the words breakdown, falling apart. And we associate those words as something as negative. When we think of being like dust, we think of it as a weakness, when we can't plant ourselves on our own power and our own accord. And what I wanted to tell you today about Ash Wednesday is that we have this resistance in us to look like we depend on somebody or we need somebody, that we need grace, that we need compassion to get through. But I want to tell you a very real part of being a created person, created by the love of God, is to know that we are people with limitations. We're mortal. In the time of the pandemic, many of us perhaps have thought, if I just push through, if I just isolate myself enough, if I just try and be strong enough, if I just try and follow the right rules, if I just do what I can to survive, I'm going to make it through. I'm going to push through. But what often happened is like no one had thought that the pandemic would be 2 years. I remember even just listening to some reflections of people at the beginning of the pandemic, and some people were thinking, well, in a couple of months, we'll get back to normal. Once the vaccine comes, everything will be back as we know it. And now we are past 2 years, and we are still wondering, are we ever going to get out of it? And as a result, many people are just exhausted. We could only be strong for so long. We tried to push through for so long. Maybe some of us have very difficult situations at home or at work, and we're thinking we can only push on for a certain amount of time. But now we're past our limits. What do we do? And if there's one thing that I want to say to you to begin the season of Lent, is to say it's okay to ask for help. I know it's kind of a strange thing to say, but I grew up as a second generation Korean Canadian with parents who immigrated here at all costs, and they gave up everything to be here. And a lot of the ethos that I inherited from my parents was that, at all costs, do your best, even in really trying circumstances. I've shared about this before in past sermons about, there's a word in Korean called chamo. It means like to endure. In the Japanese culture, it means like gaman suru. It's like if we just, gaman or we chamo enough, that is what is necessary to just get through. And that's a very virtuous thing. And that sometimes comes into our spiritual lives with God, is that we think we can just push through enough. We don't need people's help, and we don't need anybody's help, and we just push through. But what do we learn from this psalm in Psalm 56? Is that we read about this time that was attributed to the time when David was in Gath, and the Philistines had seized him. He had lost all hope. He was surrounded by his enemies. And what's the first things he says in this psalm is say, "Be merciful to me, my God." This is a very simple teaching I want to just throw out to you. And if that's the only thing that you remember, that's great. And it's basically, it's okay to ask for help. It is okay to ask to God for mercy. All of us put heavy burdens upon ourselves, saying I'm not strong enough. I wasn't good enough. I wasn't moral enough. I wasn't this or that enough. And all that really does is it builds shame inside of you. And it builds a shame of isolation, that you want to cover yourself in front of others and before God. When God knows who you are, and God says, I know who you are, and it's okay to ask for help because I know you need me, because you're created for me, with me, to be with me. So don't act like you don't need me. It's okay to ask for help. When the psalmist says, when I am afraid, I put my trust in you. In God, whose word I praise, in God I trust and am not afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? So David realizes he is as weak as dust. But the God that David puts his trust in is not weak as dust. For us to keep going through life, acting like, dust can be, this strong wall of fortitude and bravery is foolishness. I think some of the most powerful prayers that we can pray are, Lord, have mercy on me. Yes, maybe I got here for foolish reasons. Maybe I stumbled because I've made bad choices. But friends, we all do. That's not a new thing. God doesn't look at us and say, wow, I'm surprised you're so weak. I'm surprised you made a poor choice. God doesn't look at us and judge us like that. God just knows who we are and doesn't have these judgments upon us. One of the most wonderful things we can pray is that, God, I need you. In the letter of the Hebrews, it encouraged us to come before boldly before the throne of grace in our time of need. We can come boldly before God because we don't have to be so self-conscious and so self-aware of our failings. Come forward. And one of the most powerful things about asking for help from God is that we see God move in our lives. There are times that I would not have seen miracles or answers to prayer unless I just humbled myself and asked God for help. And it's in those moments when we ask God for help and we see the answers to prayer that our faith is renewed, our perspective is changed, and we realize that God is not withholding love and grace from us. It's just God is just inviting us to ask. And when we ask, our world is changed. For this Ash Wednesday, don't be afraid of your weaknesses or your failings, but see them as opportunities to come close to God and to ask for help. And for the rest of this time together, I wanted us to just take a moment of silence to just reflect upon where are the weaknesses that I have seen in my life recently, the places that I need help. And to graciously and kindly ask yourself, to open your heart and say, can I ask God for help? Ask God for help today. Yes, you are from dust, and to dust you shall return. But how amazing is that God loves to help this dust and breathe life into it and to make it something completely new. Let's enter into that process for this Lenten season.
From dust we've come, and dust we are, and shall return. Be still, my soul, and let it go. Just let it go. Glory to God. Glory to God in the highest. Glory to God. Glory to God in the highest. Naked we came and shall return into the grave. Be still, my soul, and let it go. Just let it go. Glory to God. Glory to God in the highest. Glory to God. Glory to God in the highest. Be still, my soul, Lord, make me whole. Lord, make me whole. Be still, Glory to God. Glory to God. Glory to God. Glory to God.